I hear often today is that sexism in advertising isn't nearly as bad as it used to, because certainly we don't see ads like this anymore. I mean, look at this quirky retro ad. We might even hang it up on our wall as a reminder of progress, until you see this one, which is pretty much the same thing. So, I mean, in some ways we're really, when I say we, I mean sort of society as a whole, are sort of desensitized to all this. We see it so much that it's easy to forget really how prevalent it is. So we look at a quote from modern advertising. Now this is back in the 1970s. It says, "Modern advertising seeks to create needs, not to fulfill them. It generates new anxieties instead of allaying old ones." And so if we look at just popular research on the impact of advertising on women, we find that in this quote, the use of the female body as a mere decoration diminishes women's self-esteem and ignores their human potential. This has an effect on male-female relationships and on children's sense of values as well, perceived as potentially harmful. This was 1979. This is not a recent study. We've known about this for a while. Look at another one. This is another popular study. 3 themes describe how media represent gender. First, women are underrepresented, which makes them appear invisible or unimportant. Secondly, men and women are portrayed in stereotypical ways that sustain socially endorsed views. And thirdly, relationships between men and women emphasize traditional roles and normalize violence against women. And this was almost 30 years ago. If we look at a more recent study, the research has found that just looking at an object intended to enhance beauty makes women feel worse about themselves. Advertisements displaying beauty enhancement rather than problem-solving products are likely to remind consumers of their own shortcomings. This in turn makes them view themselves negatively. And I suppose the argument may be, then they'll go out and buy. And if that's the only way we think we can get consumers to go out and buy, maybe there's an argument there, whether we like it or not, but it's certainly not the only way, and it's not necessary anymore. This was 2011. Now, another thing is that it's easy to pull down kind of shocking images and really to really push a point. But if we just take sex out of it and we just take the way advertising responds to the genders, I think this image really proves a point. And the idea that advertising is responding to the social norms of the day, you look at this and it just irritates me, because I have 2 sons, and no matter how much I want to try to avoid this, it's largely impossible. So my 3-year-old thinks that girls have bigger eyes than boys. You know, these small conclusions that I already have to try to figure out how to go around them. They're not sexualized yet. They're not even that significant yet, but they're building toward a plan because all the girl dolls have big eyes. And this blue and pink thing is just over the top and completely unnecessary. I also work a lot in the film industry, and we can see things slowly changing. I'll talk later about how it's slowly changing in advertising as well. Why I'm linking this is because I think it's kind of impossible not to link film and advertising. We're influenced by it. The media is equally powerful in both realms. There's a Digital Cinema Media and D&AD. They hosted a discussion to look at the influence of film and advertising, and this initiative continues because they are inextricably linked. Just a quote here: "Ads and films inspire each other. They're both an integral part of popular culture. My advertising tutor always told me to go to the cinema every day because you'll learn something." We see popular film directors directing commercials, and these things come together. So if we look at just the most popular films in the last couple of years, again, I'm not saying that there's not films that have women as lead roles and powered roles. They're just very few and far between. These are the posters we just get used to. These are the posters that I have to explain to my sons what's going on. My particular one is favorite is the one for Lovelace. Magnificent, outstanding, heartfelt, a fantastic piece of cinema. If we look at the history of why that film was made and the family behind it, I think you'll get an entirely different view. Not sure if anyone's seen the film. So sexism in film. For years, characters have been designed to support male leads in any given film without worthy motivations and aspirations of their own. To explain why, to measure the extent of it, Gina Davis, the actress, has long had a very respected group called Gender in Media, and they released Gender Bias Without Borders in 2014. Of what they studied, they found that a total of almost 6,000 speaking or named characters on screen were evaluated, 30% female, almost 70% male. Only 23% had a girl or a woman as a lead or co-lead driving the plot. Females were 2 times as likely as male to be shown in sexually revealing attire or in sexually compromising situations, thin, partially or fully naked. And there was very little difference in the sexualization of female characters between the ages of 13 and 39 years of age. Obviously, over 39, we're not sexual beings anymore, so that's not relevant. Behind the camera, the annual celluloid ceiling report finds that women accounted for 16% of all of these together, 16% of directors, writers, executive producers, editors, and cinematographers working on the top 250 domestic grossing films of 2013. And this is obviously going to have an impact. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that men are the bad guy, but we're going to have a perception that we go into things when we try to produce things as I would as a Canadian, or as I would as a female, or as I would as non-religious white person, whatever my bias is, that's going to be what I produce. And so if the majority of these films are being produced by white men, then there's obviously going to be an influence as a result. Just a quote from the report that the film industry is in a state of gender inertia. There's no evidence to suggest that women's employment has improved in key behind-the-scenes roles for over the last 16 years. And I also find that films continue to perpetuate the roles we're all sort of used to. So we're all going to be familiar with these. So there's always that sort of femme fatale vixen type. You can't trust her, but obviously you're going to sleep with her as soon as possible. You get the maternal type. She's going to be loving. She's going to be supportive. She's going to be nagging. And you're gonna deal with that. You're probably gonna cheat on her, and then you'll realize how much you love her. These are quite a lot of male comedy movies. There's a damsel in distress. Eventually, you're gonna have to have sex with her to cheer her up or to save her. I don't know if anyone saw Black Swan. Oh, that movie offended me. I mean, she had to have a lesbian sex scene in order to come out of her shell. Oh, she's so fortunate to have slept with the director. And then there's a carefree pixie who rescues a depressed guy. We've got the tight leather liberated woman. She's always liberated. She's empowered. She's wearing full leather. She's got high heels. Lipstick never smudges. You know, she's obviously the one we want to be. There's a girl next door. You won't notice her until she lets her hair down, literally. And then there's the one I find really offensive, and it's hard to make a witty comment about, is the victim. And often you find that there's so many in dramas in particular. How do we understand a woman's motivations? How do we understand what's going to drive her in this film? And far too often it's rape or it's domestic violence or it's one of those causes. I'm not saying, again, that there's not worthy reasons to deal with those subjects, but I'm getting pretty irritated about how it's being put into TVs and movies almost like a car chase. And I'm finding that pretty frustrating. Even Downton Abbey, I mean, come on. So one of the things, I think this came out in the 80s, the Bechdel test, and it's now getting really popular. Basically, this is a cartoonist, feminist cartoonist that produced this. Well, I don't know if you can read it, so I'll just read it. So one woman saying to the other woman, want to see a movie and get popcorn? She's like, I don't know if I'm going to find anything I like. I only go to the movies if it satisfies 3 basic requirements. 1, it has to have at least 2 women in it, who 2, talk to each other, and 3, talk to each other about something besides a man. In which case she responds, pretty strict. And it is pretty strict. Like Alien, it makes one of the lists. If you look at all the Oscar nominees, all the Oscar-awarded films last year, there were about 2 that made the list. And the previous year, I think there were 4. One of them was American Hustle, where the 2 women do talk to each other, but they talk to each other about nail polish. Technically, it counts. But things are turning, and I do think there's a lot of positivity to come out of this. I don't want people to go home and just be deflated. I think everyone's talking about this. On thorough review of 1,615 films released between 1990 and 2013, Hollywood invests more into productions that fail the test, but return on investment was better for films that passed the test. This fact is what's exploding myths. This is what is allowing me to go to film funders and say, look, we need to make this film about 2 lead females that don't fall in love with a man and have their own issues to deal with and their own rewards to find out of life. And I can put this in there and they listen and we've got more luck of those actually getting made. Also, research now shows that a film comprised of female characters with depths is likely to attract higher quality talent. So female actors want more interesting roles. It results in a more compelling story because there's more depth. It has less stereotypes, less cliches. People are more interested. It receives more positive media attention for the time being, at the very least. and it ultimately delivers a more profitable film. So according to The Telegraph, the most successful films of 2013 starred strong female characters. And where we see things starting to change, Sweden, I love Sweden, it always seems so, I don't know if anyone's from Sweden, but it always seems to be so much more progressive. But they will, obviously we expect movies to tell us when there's nudity, sex, profanity, or violence. Now cinemas in Sweden are introducing a new rating to highlight gender bias or the absence of it. So you can actually get a rating to see, is this a film that's going to relate to you? I often go to Google it, am I going to be offended by this? Am I going to be offended? So there's also a website called Common Sense, but it's more of a family, do you want to take your 8-year-old to it? But to get an A rating, a movie must pass the so-called Bechdel test. Also, the British Film Institute is demanding diversity in films. So now when they say diversity, it is on a broad scale, and so it should be. So it's not just women in film, but women make a big part of it. So they've got the 3-tick system, and that guarantees that diversity requirements must be met on screen, off screen, and by creating further opportunities from the project as well. They think it's not only good for creativity, it's good for jobs, supports an economic growth. People aren't just doing it out of the goodness of their heart, they're also seeing the benefits from this. Also, just recently, F-rated films are introduced in the UK. So I was just down in Bath a couple weeks ago, and the film festival there was giving a special F rating to films within that festival, F being for feminism. And they were given films with a strong male lead, director, producer, or writer. Now, only 19 of the 42 films were shown. Actually, 19, I don't think that's that. Maybe I shouldn't think it's not that bad, but that feels like progress. So how does this link to advertising? For one, small changes can happen, and they are happening, and we're seeing that changing in the film industry, and that can cross over quite easily into advertising. So first of all, why do we want to change this in advertising? Quite interesting. Normally I do this talk to sort of a mixed audience, so I feel like I'm kind of talking to the converted here. But women account for $7 trillion in consumer and business spending in the US, and over the next decade they will control 2/3 of consumer wealth, influence 85% of all purchasing decisions, and purchase over 50% of traditional male products, including automobiles, home improvement. In one survey, 91% of women still said advertisers don't understand them. Also, if we look at women born between 1946 and 1964 particularly, so the baby boomers, these are going to be a really desirable audience to communicate to, and not in a cliched way. So they're inheriting from their parents, from their husbands, obviously their own income, and they're very financially empowered. And also, if you look at that same group, once college, babies, all of that is out of the way, then they spend 2.5 times more than the average person spends. Primary buyers for computers, cars, banking, financial services, and a lot of other big ticket categories. So there's endless amounts of stats, and I'm kind of stumbling over these a bit because I just updated them because they're constantly coming out. But this, long story short, is it's a desirable audience. They deserve to be listened to, and they're gonna buy. So from a very practical standpoint, they need to be communicated to. 59% of women feel misunderstood by food marketers, 66% by healthcare marketers, 74% by automotive marketers, a particularly bad one, and 84% by investment marketers. And why is this? So if we look at, despite this room, according to the IPA, women accounted for just 13.5% of the 450 plus executives designated as chair, chief executive, or managing director. Does anyone here have a creative director or is a creative director that's female? 5, 6, okay. Not too bad. That's pretty good, actually. It's getting better. There's a whole conference now. Sorry. There's a whole conference now called the 3% Conference. Have you guys heard of it? It is coming to London. It sounds really interesting. Yeah, in June, okay. But that addresses that as well, that only 3% of women are creative directors, and that's their whole point, is to tackle that issue. But the statistics regarding the power of female consumers go on, yet many companies are ignoring or downplaying this extraordinary trend. So why is that? Could this be because of male dominance in the boardroom? And from the 3% Conference, a quote from that, the more varied the people who come with ideas, the more varied the ideas will be, straightforward. And since women control the majority of consumer spending and social sharing, it only makes sense to involve them in the creative process. So changing portrayal of women in advertising. We are seeing some changes. As Joe said earlier, we've got the Like a Girl campaign. We've got, I can't remember the one now. Is it Hello Flo?
Hello Flo.
Yeah. I mean, they're really good, but they are still quickly, they quick top of mind. We remember them because they're so rare. But things are happening, and we could get skeptical and kind of go, well, all right, Dove's doing the Real Beauty campaign. They also own Lynx. I am conflicted. I don't know if anyone here works on Dell or Lynx. But I'm not going to argue about good campaigns coming out. For whatever reason, I'm happy if good campaigns come out. Few examples. From the summer of 2011, 2 advertisers had their adverts banned for airbrushing an actress and a model excessively. In France, advertising legislation was introduced that retouched images had to be explicitly identified. Restrictions on advertising across Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden are among the toughest in the world and certainly the toughest in Europe. So, for example, Sweden's advertising, now I'm going to skip that word, watches out for sexism in their industry and reprimands companies seen as reinforcing gender stereotypes. So, for example, if you've got a scantily clad woman in an advert for no apparent reason, as like a recent car commercial, there's just a car and then a woman with her mouth open, I have no idea what they have to do with it. But if there's no reason, then it's deemed as sexism, and you can't use humor to justify sexism as well, which is probably a difficult area, but it's quite interesting that they've raised that. They also watch for ads that affect the self-image of children and young people, which is something you have to pay more attention to. American Medical Association called upon advertisers to stop the altering of photographs in a manner that could promote unrealistic expectations of appropriate body image because of the direct impact this was having on the rise in cosmetic surgery. Misrepresentations, they've got an app called Not Buying It, and that's kind of giving the power to the consumers to say, I've seen a sexist ad, I'm not buying your product as a result of that, and with the hopes that collectively this will make the advertisers listen and the brands listen. An interesting way behind the scenes is Lean.in.org. I don't know if you guys know this. You probably know this. And Getty. So they've teamed up to when you do go to that stock image and you do want to try to do something different and all the stock images are stereotypical, they're trying to do something different at the very least. A few successes. Sunpage, 3-girl ad banned for sexism. So this was, you won a date with a page 3 girl. I can't remember why. When you picked your fantasy football league, so it was decided that a woman could not be a prize. The response from the Sun was political correctness gone mad, which I thought was quite funny. Overtly sexual e-cigarette ad was most complained about in 2013. So people are starting to complain. It's starting to get their opinions known, and social media is also making this a lot easier to do so. This one I find hilarious. Have you guys heard about the Bic pen for women? If you haven't, you've got to Google it and go look at all the comments on Amazon or wherever it's sold, because it's just like, thankfully I can now write. Oh, there's a pen for me. It's just, who was thinking that where? I don't understand. But they do it for children, so I don't know why would they make it any different for adults, I suppose. Pleasingly, this is Laura, I don't know if she's in the room tonight. This is Laura Jordan. Pleasingly, after the feminist wasteland of the 90s, there is at least a dialogue now. After many years of being marketed to as stereotypes, women are speaking up about what matters to them. We're not all pink, we're not all worried about cake and clothes, and not all mothers are the same. So I don't particularly have an issue if a client wants to hire me for the Pampers campaign because I have children. I do sort of get offended if they think I'm going to write the same campaign that has been written for the last 20 years because I'm female and I have children. So it's not about having the perspective, it's about what they think you're going to turn out as a result of that perspective. I do kind of get annoyed if I get pulled off the tech campaigns because I have children. And then challenging some dated myths. So often when I have this conversation, and for too many years I've been apologetic and I've also been kind of guilty of it myself, to be completely honest. But these are the myths I often hear. So if you're in a room with, where not everyone is of the same mind, and I'm happy to debate, I'm sure everyone amongst us is going to have a different opinion as well. The advertising is about driving sales. So if it works, it works. That's right, advertising is about driving sales, but advertising that embraces gender equality does not harm, and it's proven that it can, in fact, enhance business credibility. So if anyone's seen the Carl Jr. ads in the States, the most atrocious sexist commercials generally run during the Super Bowl, it doesn't actually drive sales. People don't even remember which burger it's for. They know that it's a burger ad, and then we get all these complaints about it, but it hasn't actually proven to drive sales. And also, as more awareness develops about the negative influence of sexist advertisements, business is likely to benefit from banning it. At the very least, you're going to be seen as more creative or more, more in touch with what's going on now. Another argument is that sexism is impossible to define. It is tricky and it is subjective, and we all have our ideas of what it means to be feminist or what sexism means, but that doesn't mean it's impossible, and it certainly doesn't mean that we don't try. So the Council of Europe, Denmark, Norway, Australia, they've all developed ways to evaluate sexist advertising. These definitions have been continued to be developed, and they center around advertising that demeans the status of women, objectifies them, which is pretty straightforward, and plays upon stereotypes which harm women and society in general. This is a pretty prime example. Not that difficult to define here. Same shirt, exact same shirt, and that's how it's advertised. So I don't see how that would be a challenge, but American Apparel gets way too much attention for everything they do wrong. Argument number 3, men are objectified and stereotyped in the media. Yes, they are. I don't see why that's an argument against what we're talking about. If we want to make that an argument for not objectifying or stereotyping men, I'm fully in support of that. You don't have to look at it. Get that all the time, don't look at it. Seriously? I mean, really? I can't not look at it. It is impossible to ignore. And then there's this. Ads that avoid sexism win over the press. So all ads voted by The Guardian as the most successful of the naughties did not rely on sexism at all. Ads that avoid sexism also win over consumers. So YouTube's most popular ads of 2014 did not resort to blatant sexism. I say blatant there because there's still roles, there's still stereotypes, we're not using them, trying to change them. And ads that avoid sexism also win over the industry. So all the winners of the Cannes Lions avoided cliched stereotypes in their campaigns. We don't need it anymore. So the truth is that women are the superset, they're not the subset, and the rate at which women are amassing wealth and exerting influence is unprecedented. Yet the work that is supposed to motivate them springs almost entirely from a male perspective. So the advertising industry is a $33 billion industry. Misunderstanding female consumers from a business perspective is sheer lunacy. I'm just going to end on someone else's words because I couldn't say it better than that.
So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey, and first of all, going to look at innovation and empathy within your team and how that kind of works, and then innovation and empathy within you and your users, whether it's product users or service users, and then innovation and empathy in yourself and kind of what it means to self-empathize. So any complaints or feedback or general criticism, send it my way and I'd be happy to respond. And also use the hashtag #TheseWomenCan. It'd be great to see your thoughts on what I'm saying. So how did I get here? And I'm not really narcissistic. This is just, I like to make a fool out of myself. So as you can probably tell from my accent, I am from down south. I'm from Surrey, but I live in Manchester. Any Manx in the room? Anyone? No? Yeah, woo! So I co-founded SheSays Manchester, and along with a group of women up north, and we're all from different backgrounds, a couple of people from Hyper Island, a few people from ad agencies, and a couple of people from digital and tech. And yeah, Manchester's great. I would go into my journey here tonight, but it was horrific and I don't want to talk about it. So I started off in London. I worked in a few digital and ad agencies in London and kind of found my feet. Didn't really know what I wanted to do until I worked in a digital ad agency, and I kind of fell in love with tech and digital and turned into a bit of a geek and tried to teach myself how to code, and yeah, that didn't go very well, but I still tell people I can do it and I can't. And I then moved to Manchester, and despite having this as a picture, I'm an avid Arsenal fan, which doesn't bode very well. No booze, please, no booze. And yeah, I mean, being a girl that likes football, working in tech, and being from an ethnic minority puts me in a pretty good niche. You know, I kind of walk into the office going, did anyone watch the game? And everyone's like, no, we didn't. And it's a bit bizarre. And yeah, so I kind of went up to Manchester for university, studied history and politics, so nothing to do with ad or marketing or digital. I literally just wanted to study something that I would really enjoy, so spend 3 years like enjoying what I'm learning rather than something that would get me a career. So it meant I spent all of my summers working and doing internships in different types of agencies and building up my CV so that when I left uni I could work in the industry I wanted to. And I left uni and worked in a few different ad agencies and digital agencies, which was interesting, and I'll kind of go into that. And it kind of pushed me to go freelance. So I'm currently contracting at a tech co-working space called Spaceport X, if you have a chance, look it up. And out of about 60 people in the office, 5 different companies, 20 different freelancers, there are 3 women. And I am the only ethnic minority woman in the space. And that just kind of gives you a glimpse into the kind of tech world currently in Manchester. So that's kind of where She Says sprung from. It was kind of, we need to have a space where we can talk about these issues and what's going on and how we're represented. But as you can probably, maybe, I don't know, my voice might not be wavering so much today because I've had a glass of wine, but I am an introvert, and it took me a lot to kind of force myself into public speaking. Not because there's anything wrong with not wanting to public speak, but it was always an ambition of mine. So whilst I was at university, I kind of really forced myself into the debate team and reached a whole new level of geek. And yeah, had to public speak and had to debate and had to argue, and led me to be able to do stuff like this. But it still terrifies me, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I found myself working quite a lot of different ad agencies, and it took me a while in Manchester to realise why I was so exhausted all the time, and why I was finding it difficult to get my ideas across, or why I felt I was being undermined. And same kind of feedback kept coming up, like, I need to join in more, well, you're too quiet, be more involved in discussions and come out of your shell, and yeah, be more confident and be part of the team. I don't know if anyone else has had this kind of feedback before in team meetings or just generally in feedback. I mean, I was in one agency for a week and got pulled up with feedback like this. And I was like, I've been here a week, like I still don't know everyone's name, like, you know. And it really made me realise that the people I was working with didn't understand the way I worked, and they expected a certain kind of decorum from me. So they expected me to stand on the table and dance, or literally, that happened in one office I worked in. There was a puppy running around, it was insane. And I was kind of like, that's not how I work, that's not how I innovate, it's not how I'm creative. I can't just be that person, I can't be that centre of attention, and it doesn't work for me. And it's fine for people that do work because the environment catered for them, but for the quieter people in the room, it really didn't. It pushed them to the background, and it expected that they couldn't innovate, they weren't creative, they could only be there to manage or to take orders. There was never that kind of room for discussion. So that's kind of what the crux of this talk is about. And this is a really good quote by Susan Cain, if anyone's read Quiet. It's basically about the benefits of being an introvert and why it shouldn't be something that is disregarded or seen as a negative. So what I found was, people just kept saying to me, why aren't you loud? Like, you go on a night out and you're on the dance floor and it's fine and you can be the centre of attention and you don't care, but you come into the office and you're really quiet or you're really hardworking and you don't really talk to anyone. Well, what do the two have in relation to each other? Why is there a connection? I work very differently to how I play, and I need time and quiet to be creative and to get my work done. That surely isn't a negative thing. But yeah, these are just some of the pitfalls I came across, and I think it's important to realise that there isn't anything wrong with being quiet and there isn't anything wrong with being loud. It's how the two are prioritised in the workplace. But what does this actually have to do with innovation and empathy? So this is where I got a bit fancy with my PowerPoint. And understanding is the crux of empathy. So people didn't understand the way it worked, and they didn't care. They just weren't bothered. It was, you're quiet, that's you. These people are loud, they're automatically better. But if my bosses had taken the time to really understand that I can work really well in a quiet environment and then do a presentation and get my point across rather than being put on the spot in a meeting with 20 people and the client, then, I would have had the same input as everyone else. And I know that's not always feasible, but it's important to have that kind of understanding that not everyone works the same. And that's the foundation for empathy. If you can put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand the way they work, whether they're an introvert, an extrovert, ambivert, or just a really funny, sarcastic person that you can never take seriously, or whatever it might be, you can help them shine and make them innovate and be creative in completely different ways. So it's really understanding and empathizing with someone can open doors that you didn't know were there. So what is innovation? So I'd really like to kind of open the floor and get some ideas about what you guys think innovation is. That's, if you don't mind running around again. Anyone?
This is one of those words that's become so saturated that it kind of almost loses meaning. Passion. Who's passionate in the room? For me, innovation would probably be finding a problem and coming up with a bunch of answers. Some of them are going to be totally bizarre, and then just giving it a shot. I don't think innovation necessarily has to work. It could be a state of mind. I'm getting really fancy here. It could be a state of mind. It could be an approach to something. But I think when you move away from a space where you're thinking in the norm, where you're expecting everyone to be extrovert, like me, you start to find things that are actually really great that you didn't think of before. That's my perspective.
Definitely. Innovation can be anything. People get it really confused with invention, so coming up with something completely new. It doesn't have to be that. It can be revolutionary or it can be evolutionary. So you can look at an existing product and find ways that can make it better. Tiny things like you don't have to reinvent the lamp, but you can come up with a lampshade, and that's innovation. So I just wanted to kind of get that across, that innovation's not coming up with something completely new. It can just be changing something really simple, and it can really have an effect on people. So empathy can lead, got fancy again, empathy can lead to innovation through understanding. So what I'm going to go through now is kind of empathy, your users, whether that's a product user or a service user, and how that can lead to innovation. So I really should have done my journey here because my train was delayed for an hour, and then I lost my Oyster card on the tube. It really wasn't fun, but instead I've done my normal journey to work. So I walked to the bus stop, pretty happy. I mean, it's the one day in Manchester where it's not raining, so everything's really fine. But I missed my bus, and my happiness shoots right down, and I'm pretty upset. I then wait for the bus, and it's okay. I kind of look at the bus timetable and can see there's meant to be one in 3 minutes, but it takes 20 minutes, and I'm just waiting there. And I get on the bus and my happiness shoots up. So this is a really common service design tool. It's called customer journey mapping, and it basically maps out your users' emotions throughout their journey in your service or product. And the points of frustration, so the 2 points where I'm missing the bus and waiting for the bus, they're the points of innovation, because you can then use those as an idea to come up with a solution to make their journey happier. So I know in London you've got the fancy TfL, and you can wait at your bus stop and get told that your bus is 3 minutes away, or there's an app that tells you exactly the same thing. We don't have that in Manchester. So something like that would be great for someone to innovate in Manchester, or even just improving the Greater Manchester transport, or having a bus stop that has accurate bus times. Anything like that are kind of innovations that exist within the system, but will make that journey happier and less frustrating. So they're points of innovation that you're getting from empathizing with your user through understanding their journey. So there are 5 other things that empathy lends to innovation, and one of them is triggers of use, which is understanding why people are using your product or service. So is it that they're using baking soda to bake cakes, or is it that they're using it to make your fridge smell better? Like, how are they using it? What's that context? And you might not realise it, but that's empathising with your user because it's different to the intended use. So if you can see that trigger, you can come up with innovative ways to advertise or to use that product completely differently. And it might not fit your brand, but it can lead to more innovations and more product development. The environment. So I've recently become single and I've started to use dating apps, and I would never use it in public. So the app creators should really think about where their users are going to be comfortable using that app and innovate ways that empathizes with their users to think, right, this is pretty obvious they're swiping left and right whether they don't like someone or not. And we should maybe think of a way that's a bit more discreet, or, that they can use on the tube or the bus and not everyone there is going to see what they're doing. So thinking about the environment that someone is using your product or service is empathizing with them and leading to more innovation. So this is all the kind of stuff you could be doing with your users and your users, whether it's service users or product users. So user customization. So I recently switched from a PC to an Apple. Yeah, I know. I work in tech, and I had to. And it took me ages to figure out how to right-click on my keypad, and I still don't have it enabled. I still do the control-click function, which is user customization, because I've got a problem. I'm too lazy to figure out how to actually solve it, so I've created my own hack that I've now become customized to. So focus groups are a great way to understand how to resolve these problems. So if you can empathize with your user and see these frustrations or see these kind of, wow, that's not how it's meant to be used, but they're using it like that, you can innovate and make that easier. So really, I should buy a mouse, or that's probably Apple's innovation to get over that problem. But there are loads of different things you can do to innovate solutions through just understanding their own individual hacks. And so intangible attributes. A really good example is Hoover, and how in the UK in particular we'll just say, oh, you need to Hoover the house, even though it's a brand. So we won't say you need to vacuum because that's too American. We'll say Hoover, even though you've got a Dyson. And it's an intangible attribute because Hoover has become that verb. It's something that hasn't happened intentionally, but it's become a part of our language. So it's something that you didn't necessarily mean, but it's become a part of your brand. And why this is important to empathise with your users is because you need to make sure that the brand, the intangible attributes actually match with what you're trying to achieve. So understanding and empathising with your users, whoever they are, and making sure that they're getting the right message, they're understanding what you want to represent and how you want to be used, is really important. And again, I'm just going to say innovation because it's in my title, but it can help you innovate. And unarticulated user needs. So this is kind of going back to that journey map, when you're getting really frustrated and aggravated, but you just keep on going. It's kind of that, why is this happening, but I'm still keeping going. My computer's frozen, but I'll just wait here until it unfreezes. It's that aggravation that can lead to really good innovation because it's unarticulated. You're never going to write a letter to Microsoft because Windows shut down and you lost your work. You're just going to get over it and do it again. But it's an unarticulated need because something needs to be done to resolve that problem. And it works just as well for happiness. If there's something that is making you really happy from a service or a product that you didn't necessarily intend, then that's obviously a great thing and you should boast about that. So empathise with your users on both negativity and positivity and make the most out of it. Use that as innovation to create solutions or to promote the things that are making them happy. So that's kind of a really quick whirlwind of innovation and empathy within the workplace. So understanding that, yeah, you work with introverts and extroverts and you need to make most out of having both of them in the room, and whether that's having one-to-one meetings as well as group meetings, or making sure everyone's got allocated time within the office to talk, and understanding your users. And this leads to equality because you're giving everyone their space, you're understanding and empathising with how they work. And in my opinion, not enough companies are doing this. I mean, it's a trend now for more and more companies to do psychometric testing and that dot testing colour thing to see how people work, but it's not followed through effectively. So yeah, I'm green and they're blue, but we're still expected to do exactly the same thing every day. So it's just understanding how people work and knowing that some people need to go home for an hour a day to recharge and that other people do want to talk and do presentations. But having that expectation when they start the company and knowing how they work can really help them to shine and make them feel comfortable in their space. Because it's often seen that introversion and extroversion are a dichotomy, but they're not. It's like an elastic scale. And that's why I'm able to come and stand and do a talk, but also be very quiet and nervous in the background because, yeah, it is a scale. And you can stretch yourself as much as you want, but you can also shrink as much as you want. So the sooner everyone kind of, in every industry, realises that, yeah, there's a mixture of both in everyone, we can kind of start understanding and empathising and creating even better products and services. So this is kind of what I really wanted to talk about today, is self-empathy and innovation. And self-empathy is kind of a new term. It's about self-awareness and really taking the time to understand the way that you work rather than those around you. So quiet really helped me to realise this because for ages I was convincing myself I had to be an extrovert to make it in whatever industry I was in. It was like, I have to be the loudest person in the room, otherwise I'm never going to be successful. And it just isn't true. You can definitely be an introvert and own a room and walk in and, you know, talk to anyone you want to. You just do it in your own way. So self-empathy is really just understanding the way you work. So yeah, I can go to a networking event and talk to loads of people, but I know the next day I'll need the evening off to just sit and read a book and probably not talk to anyone and just like recharge a little bit, and that's fine. It's just knowing that that's what I need to do to, like, you know, not be exhausted and die. So that leads to self-innovation. So what I think is really important here is putting happiness at the foundation of every decision you make. So if you're happiest being at the centre of attention and talking and doing presentations and meeting new people, have that as the foundation of your decisions. Don't try and force yourself to be quiet just because you work with an introvert. It doesn't have to be like that. You can just self-innovate and come up with your own ideas on how you want to work, and you know, you can work that into your work culture as well. It's not, this is the culture of the company, I have to fit into it. Like, mould it to fit to what you want to be and how you work, and if the culture works, it works. If it doesn't, then maybe move on or talk to your bosses about it and see if they can understand where you're coming from. I think it's important to kind of have that chat and talk about it. So this kind of leads me on to my personal journey through the last 4 months. So don't be afraid to be selfish, which kind of was a really bold statement for me to make to myself, because I never say no. Everyone that asked me to do something, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And it really wasn't good. Like, I was saying yes to doing 3 different events a week and it just didn't make sense. So what I had to realise was I self-empathised, and it took me a while to realise that the decisions I'd made in my career were really affecting my personal life, and it meant I wasn't juggling the two very well, and it took a lot to kind of understand what was going on in both, and it meant I wanted to be more selfish. I'm quite happy to say no to people now and kind of explain why. And I think, yeah, I don't know, being selfish is a good thing. So just do it a bit more. I've kind of gone really fast. So does anyone have any questions? So this is my last slide, and it's just imagine a place where every person has the same intuitive connection to the world. So if everyone kind of took the time to empathise with each other and innovate using that empathy, we'd probably come up with a lot more services and products that had the user at the foundation rather than ideas for ideas' sake.
It was a really nice mix of people. Everybody was very receptive. Lots of people chipped in with great ideas. Those who didn't speak were very supportive of other people who spoke. You didn't feel embarrassed for having a thought. And I think that that can be quite difficult to find, be it in work or in different members' organisations, to feel completely comfortable and not worried about whether or not what you're saying is going to be judged. I think it's very rare, and I give big testimony to what these guys are doing to be able to bring people forward like that without feeling judged.
I love the piece on empathy and innovation because I think so many people get pigeonholed or shut down and don't even know how to kind of trigger or start those conversations, and it was kind of refreshing to open that up and understand ways to tackle that.
What really interests me is feminism in pop culture and where that's going. So I think there's a lot of progress that's been made, as you mentioned in your talk, but I also think that we need to approach sort of pop feminism, especially with an advertising and marketing point of view, with a bit of skepticism, because where you draw the line between movements and real change happening versus people capitalizing on this fourth wave of feminism as a marketing tool.
There is a lot of stuff that's still very sexist or makes me feel uncomfortable about myself. There's still stuff that I see that makes me feel uncomfortable with my body, makes me feel ashamed for who I am. And if it's happening to me, it's probably happening to other people. And I don't think any marketeer with any kind of perspective on what they're trying to achieve would actually want their consumer to feel that way. So I think we as an industry are almost doing our clients a disservice in not stepping up and saying, you could be doing more. If they're not interested in the ethical sense, they should at least be interested in making sure their consumers actually value what they're saying and value their product.
No, to me, I definitely see progress, don't get me wrong, and I think one of the disadvantages is we are the UK, so we have a smaller percentage of diversity, some may say, but I do think we kind of do just as much as we want to sometimes. So I definitely see a lot of mixed race but not enough black, and for someone like me, yeah, I'm represented because I'm light skinned, but what about the dark skinned girls who dominate London? What I do know now is I have open conversations with my clients, with people in my agencies. I share articles, and I think when I spoke to other friends who come from kind of minority backgrounds, they've been scared to do that because they don't want to seem like the person standing on the chair shouting at everybody. But I don't shout, I talk to everybody. And I've been genuinely surprised from men, women, everybody alike. People then going, do you know what? I never thought of it like that. Let's talk about that. And I've seen progress. I've seen us cast different girls in our zines and do stuff. And that makes me incredibly proud. So as you said, it's progress and it's small steps, but we're going to get somewhere. I have faith.